Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Jenna never thought she'd reach a point in her life where her heartbeat felt like a steady drum of warning, reminding her just how alone she truly was. Yet here she stood, 8 months pregnant, struggling to drag a heavy oak dresser up the narrow staircase of Marcus's townhouse. Every breath came harder than the last. A dull, throbbing ache gripped her lower back as her belly pressed into the solid wood of the dresser. The baby stirred in her womb with restless energy, as though protesting the burden placed upon her body. She paused on the second step to catch her breath. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. The overhead light cast an unforgiving glow, illuminating her strained face. She gripped the edge of the dresser with her left hand, using the other to brace against the wall. A wave of dizziness made her vision blur for a moment. She blinked, trying to refocus. In the living room, she could hear faint laughter. Marcus's mother, Linda, was sipping wine on the couch. The tinkling noise of her glass, combined with the hush of television commercials, floated up the stairs. Jenna imagined that Linda might peer up at any moment to check if she needed assistance. But it never happened. There was no offer of help, no inquiry into her well-being. Jenna felt a surge of frustration balloon in her chest. This was the father of her child downstairs, and his mother, a woman who had made it painfully clear she only tolerated Jenna out of obligation. Gritting her teeth, Jenna dug her feet into the carpeted stairs, trying to push the dresser a few inches higher. The overwhelming realization hit her. No one was coming to help. Not now, not ever, if she didn't help herself. And that truth sank into her heart like a stone dropped into the deepest well. She had never imagined her pregnancy would look like this. If you had asked her a few months ago, she might have described a glowing mother-to-be scenario. Baby showers, an attentive partner, the gentle excitement of decorating a nursery. Instead, there was this suffocating sense of neglect. The weight of it settled, not only on her body, but on her soul. As she took another labored step, Jenna inhaled slowly, a single tear slipping down her cheek. She didn't know then, but that tear was only the first drop in a storm of heartbreak that was about to be unleashed. From the top of the stairs, Jenna heard a sharp burst of laughter. Not hers, Marcus's. He was in the living room, phone in hand, scrolling through memes or videos, something that clearly amused him enough to keep him transfixed. She paused, half expecting him to suddenly jump up and bound to her side, realize he should help the woman he claimed to love. That he would see her in distress, dripping with sweat, breathless, 8 months pregnant, and think, wait, I should be a partner here. But that didn't happen. Instead, as she listened, she could make out the faint sound of a comedic voiceover. It was likely one of those viral videos he and his friends were constantly sending each other. She recognized the comedic style that Marcus seemed to love, loud, brash, silly. She steadied her footing once more, aware of every twinge in her lower abdomen. The baby kicked indignantly, as if to say, "Mom, stop this." She wanted nothing more than to fling open the bedroom door, collapse onto the bed, and forget the rest of the night. But the dresser had to make it upstairs. She was in the midst of rearranging the nursery area because Marcus had decided their old dresser was too old-fashioned for the baby. Ironically, he insisted on buying something new, but left Jenna to handle the logistics of moving furniture around. Downstairs, Marcus's laughter grew louder. Jenna could sense he was completely checked out from her struggles. She gently nudged the dresser one more step, arms burning. The plush carpet underfoot did little to keep her stable. In fact, it only made dragging the piece of furniture more challenging. She overheard him snickering, "Yo, that's hilarious," followed by more chuckling. The casual disregard stung more than physical exhaustion. It signified so much more than a lack of help with the dresser. It exposed a growing chasm between them. A chasm that threatened to swallow any hopes of a supportive family life she had once dared to imagine. A cluster of self-doubts flooded her mind, swirling with every drop of sweat on her brow. Would this be her future? Straining alone, while Marcus scrolled through his phone, laugh track in the background? Was she setting herself up for a relationship where she would carry every burden, figurative and literal, while he sat idly by, laughing at memes? Trembling from the effort, Jenna pushed the dresser another inch. She let out a soft, shuddering exhale. The baby gave another strong kick, a nudge that felt less like an annoyance and more like an urging. Keep going, that little life inside her seemed to say. Despite the suffocating sadness, she pushed on. Because at that moment, all she had was herself, her unborn child, and a resolve that would only continue to grow. Finally, when the dresser was mostly settled at the top of the stairs, Jenna lowered herself to the floor, panting softly. She tried to catch her breath, massaging her side, where a sharp stitch made every inhale painful. Just then, Marcus's footsteps reverberated along the hallway. He appeared at the bottom of the stairs, phone still in hand, an irritated look on his face. He gestured vaguely toward her, as if her very presence was an inconvenience. "Why are you breathing like that? You act like you're dying or something." The bite in his words struck deeper than any physical pain she felt. She looked down at her swollen belly, sweat-soaked shirt clinging to her. She was 8 months pregnant, had just lugged a heavy piece of furniture up a flight of stairs, alone, and this was his response? He couldn't even offer a glass of water or a simple, "Hey, let me help you." Instead, he was questioning her breathing, making it sound like she was an actress in some melodrama. Jenna swallowed the anger rising in her throat. She mustered a small, forced smile. "I'm out of breath because I'm pregnant, Marcus. This dresser is heavy. A little help would have been nice." He rolled his eyes. "You never said you needed help. You just started doing it. Besides, I'm busy." She tried not to let the sarcasm drip from her tone. "Right. Of course. The memes are so important." Rather than acknowledging her point, Marcus simply shrugged. "Look, all I'm saying is, it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to huff and puff so loudly." He pivoted, turning his back on her, tossing over his shoulder as he walked away. "Some of us are trying to relax, you know." Jenna pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heart throb. The words, "trying to relax," felt like a personal jab, as if to say her presence, her heavy breathing, her pregnancy was an unwelcome intrusion. Had he always been like this, and she just never noticed? Or had something changed since she got pregnant? She couldn't tell anymore. All she knew was that every word from him felt like a fresh wound, every laugh he shared with others seemed like mockery of her struggles. Silently, she resolved to keep her guard up. If he wouldn't help, she'd handle things herself. But a small, trembling part of her wondered how many more times she could do it all alone before she broke beyond repair. Later that evening, after placing the dresser in the spare bedroom they planned to convert into the nursery, Jenna ventured downstairs. She found Marcus's mother, Linda, perched comfortably on the couch, swirling a glass of wine in one hand as though she were in a high-end tasting room rather than her son's modest living area. The subtle clink of ice cubes against the glass punctuated the dim hush of the house. Linda gave Jenna a once-over, barely concealing a smirk. "Oh, you look exhausted, dear," she said, her voice dripping with sweet condescension. "Hard day at work, or at the gym. You're, 8 months now? And still trying to move furniture? Not wise, is it?" Before Jenna could respond, Linda sipped her wine with a flourish. Something about the gesture reeked of smug superiority. Then she continued, "But I suppose you wanted this baby, so that's the price you pay." Jenna froze. She felt the sting of tears behind her eyes, but she forced them down. She remembered how Linda had never fully approved of Jenna from the start. She had once commented on Jenna's background. She was from a middle-class family, no fancy pedigree to speak of, and had implied that she was only after Marcus's money. Not that Marcus had a lot of money in the first place, but Linda seemed determined to make Jenna feel less than. Swallowing her hurt, Jenna gently lowered herself onto the armchair across from Linda. She could see Marcus was nowhere to be found, probably in his gaming room scrolling through more memes or playing a new game. "Yes, I wanted the baby," Jenna acknowledged. "But it would be nice to get some help every once in a while." Linda raised an eyebrow, swirling her wine yet again. "Help." A short, dry laugh escaped her thin lips. "Young lady, when you decide you want a child, you should be prepared for the responsibilities. This includes moving a dresser or whatever else needs to be done. Marcus shouldn't have to deal with your choices all the time." Jenna's stomach churned. There was an undercurrent of cruelty in Linda's voice. It was as if she wanted to cement the idea that Jenna was an imposition, someone burdening her son with a baby he hadn't explicitly asked for, or so Linda believed. Yet, what Linda didn't know, or conveniently chose to forget, was that the pregnancy had been a mutual decision. Marcus had initially seemed excited, telling Jenna he was ready to step up, to start a family. He had even gotten teary-eyed the first time they heard the baby's heartbeat. Where had that Marcus gone? A wave of longing washed over Jenna. Longing for support, for warmth, for any sign of genuine care. She pressed her lips together, deciding it was safer to remain silent than to engage in a losing battle with Linda. With every sip Linda took, Jenna felt the distance between her and this family widen. As she rose to head toward the kitchen, Linda's final jab echoed in her ears. Next time, maybe think carefully about what you're asking for. Babies aren't just an accessory, dear. They're a lifelong demand on a man's wallet and time. Jenna's hands trembled as she poured herself a glass of water in the kitchen. She stared at the water, tears threatening to spill. One thought hammered in her mind. She wanted this baby, yes. But she never asked to carry it alone. In the hallway leading toward the bedrooms, Jenna felt a sudden wave of dizziness hit her. The corridor seemed to tilt, and dark spots danced in her vision. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself, her breathing ragged. The combined stress of the night, carrying the dresser, Marcus's indifference, Linda's barbs, had taken its toll. Her body felt near its breaking point. Unexpectedly, her knees gave out, and she crumpled to the floor, her pregnant belly making the fall awkward and frightening. In an instant, she was on her side, blinking away tears of shock. Her palm grazed the soft rug, trying to find some anchor in reality. A flurry of thoughts ran through her mind. Is the baby okay? Am I going into early labor? Did I hit my stomach? The sound of footsteps shattered the silence. Marcus appeared, looming over her with an expression that looked less concerned and more annoyed. Don't be so dramatic, he snapped, crossing his arms. You're fine. If you just go to bed and stop overdoing it, this wouldn't happen. You're always talking about how tired you are, and yet you keep moving around like you're some superhero. Jenna winced, her lower abdomen tight with discomfort. The baby kicked, and she let out a breath of relief. At least the baby was still active. Marcus, she breathed, voice shaky. I felt dizzy. She tried to push herself upright, but her arms trembled. Could you help me up? Please. He sighed, finally reaching down to grip her elbow. His assistance was barely there. The moment she had enough footing to stand, he let go, stepping back as though her very presence might be contagious. You should drink more water, he muttered, avoiding her eyes. I can't be having you collapse all over the place. It's embarrassing. Her cheeks flamed with a mix of shame and anger. Embarrassing? She longed to scream that she was carrying his child, that she needed rest and support, not judgments and accusations. But all that emerged was a subdued whisper, I'm sorry. He gave a half-hearted shrug. Look, let's not make a big deal out of this. Just go rest. I'll see you in the morning, all right? Jenna nodded weakly, leaning against the wall. Marcus turned and walked away as if the whole episode had simply been a minor inconvenience. The flickering hall light cast a long shadow behind him, making him look distant, cold. Once he disappeared into the living room, she exhaled shakily and placed a protective hand over her belly, whispering to the child inside, I'm doing my best. I promise. In that moment, an invisible line hardened in her mind, some boundary that, once crossed, changes a relationship forever. She recognized something was terribly wrong. She recognized that she couldn't keep this up, not in this environment. But it wasn't yet clear what she would do about it, only that something had to change. That night, Jenna settled into bed, hugging a pillow against her belly to ease the pressure. She could still hear Linda murmuring in the living room, her voice rising and falling like a sour lullaby in the background. Marcus was on his phone, pacing in the hallway. His voice drifted into the bedroom through the half-closed door, overshadowing the hum of the air conditioner. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, truly she wasn't, but the moment she caught her name, her senses went on high alert. She heard him laugh softly into the phone, a laugh that was meant to be conspiratorial. A low pang of dread tugged at Jenna's stomach. Then the words drifted in. "I'm not even attracted to her anymore," he said, an edge of dismissive disgust in his tone. "I mean, she's huge. Always complaining. Ugh, I can't wait until this is all over." A jolt of shock coursed through Jenna's system. She felt her throat tighten, tears pricking at her eyelids. The cruelty in his statement left her breathless. This was the man she had loved, the father of her baby, someone she had envisioned a future with. She shifted on the bed, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he'd hear it if he stepped closer. His voice continued in low murmurs, but she caught snatches. "Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's tough living with her. She's always in a mood. It's like her sole mission is to make me miserable." Jenna bit her lip to stifle a sob. She felt a swirl of emotions. Shock, anger, and above all, hurt. She recalled moments early in their relationship, how he used to gently place his hand on her lower back as they walked, how he'd surprise her with thoughtful notes, how he once declared he couldn't wait to see what their child would look like. Where had that tenderness gone? When Marcus finally ended the call, he poked his head into the bedroom. She pretended to be asleep, eyes squeezed shut. He stood in the doorway for a second, then turned off the hallway light and retreated downstairs. Jenna's mind roiled with disbelief. She replayed his words again and again, feeling them etched into her heart. "I'm not even attracted to her anymore." As silent tears streamed down her cheeks, she knew she couldn't confront him directly. Not yet. What would she say? That she'd overheard his confession of disgust? That she was deeply wounded? A wave of resignation flowed through her. This is who he is now, she thought, pressing a hand to her chest, where her heart felt painfully heavy. If he was saying these things to someone else, who knew what other betrayals lurked behind his half-hearted displays of affection? She turned onto her side, cradling her belly, whispering to her child, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." In that moment, a quiet conviction was born inside her. She had to protect herself and her baby from the toxic influences swirling around them, even if it meant eventually standing up and walking away. In the quiet solitude of early morning, while Marcus was still asleep and Linda was presumably in the guest bedroom, Jenna gathered the resolve to do something drastic, something that signaled she was no longer naive. She'd just stumbled upon one of Marcus's duffel bags in the closet. A wave of impulse gripped her. Start packing. Her heart hammered as she folded a few pairs of leggings, some loose t-shirts, and her prenatal vitamins. She carefully slipped them into the bottom of the bag, making sure to leave plenty of space so it didn't look bulky. If Marcus or Linda noticed a suitcase on the bed, questions would ensue. Questions Jenna wasn't ready to answer. She paused when she reached for her favorite hoodie. A swirl of memories flooded her. That hoodie had been a gift from her older brother when she got accepted into a university program she later had to leave for financial reasons. The sentiment behind it reminded her of a time she felt unstoppable, brimming with optimism. Could she find that optimism again? She gently tucked the hoodie into the bag. From the nightstand, she gathered a few essentials: a small bag of toiletries, a photo of her grandmother who had passed away 2 years prior, her only real maternal figure, and some important documents: her birth certificate, social security card, and the forms for the baby's future pediatric appointments. She placed them carefully, wrapping them in a spare t-shirt so they wouldn't attract attention. As she zipped the suitcase, she felt a pang of fear mixed with relief. This was a backup plan, a tiny lifeline she was creating for herself, should the day come when she had to leave in a hurry. In the dim lamplight, she glanced toward the door, listening for any footsteps. All was silent. With steady hands, she slid the suitcase under the bed, wedging it behind some boxes so it wouldn't be immediately visible. The weight of her decision filled the room, a silent vow that she would no longer be complacent in her own suffering. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling a soft flutter from the baby. It was as if the child was saying, "Do what you must." She whispered back, "I promise I'll keep you safe." In that moment, she realized that while she might not have the strength to confront Marcus or Linda head-on yet, she did have the power of her own preparation. She had a plan, and that knowledge, small as it was, steadied her frayed nerves. The next morning, Jenna awoke early, her body weighed down by exhaustion. Despite a restless night, She forced herself into her routine. She shuffled into the kitchen, determined to make breakfast, eggs, toast, and fresh fruit. Perhaps she clung to this mundane task because it reminded her of normalcy. If she had a good breakfast, maybe she could get through the day without collapsing emotionally. The scent of scrambled eggs wafted through the house, and soon Marcus ambled in, phone in hand. He plopped down at the table without so much as a nod. His eyes remained glued to his screen. A few moments later, Linda entered, looking more put together than Jenna could manage. She poured herself coffee, took a seat, and perused a magazine that had been left on the table. Plates and forks clinked as Jenna served them. She tried to muster a small smile. "Good morning. I made breakfast." "Aha," was Marcus's only reply, barely glancing up from his phone. Linda eyed the eggs dispassionately before taking a cautious bite. She didn't say a word of thanks. Instead, she muttered something about the coffee being too weak. Jenna's chest tightened, but she kept her expression neutral. She fetched another bag of coffee grounds and politely asked Linda if she wanted a different blend. Linda waved a dismissive hand. When all three were seated, the silence was palpable. Jenna was used to awkward silences by now. They had become a permanent fixture in this household. She had once imagined family breakfasts as warm gatherings where she and Marcus would talk about their dreams for the baby or share funny stories. Now, it was merely a moment for them to fuel up before retreating to separate corners of the house. Finally, Linda cleared her throat. "Well, Jenna, you're getting close to your due date. Are you sure you're ready? You still look quite frazzled these days." Marcus snorted in amusement, scrolling on his phone. Jenna's eyes flickered from Linda's disapproving glare to Marcus's aloof posture. "I'm doing the best I can," she answered softly, suppressing the urge to lash out. "I've been preparing, got the nursery items ordered. I just need to assemble the crib once it arrives." Linda scoffed. "You should have done that already. This baby won't wait for you to get your act together." Marcus let out a low chuckle, finally locking his phone and placing it on the table. "She's right, you know. The crib should have been ready weeks ago. Honestly, you're always behind on things." Jenna swallowed a retort. She clenched the napkin in her lap, counting to 5 in her head to calm the flurry of frustration. "I know," she said at last. "I'll handle it." Inside, she reminded herself of the suitcase hidden under the bed. A small wave of satisfaction rippled through her at the thought that she was not entirely helpless, that she had a plan. Still, the loneliness gnawed at her. Why couldn't they just be decent, for once? A single thank you, or even a half smile would have gone a long way. When breakfast ended, Marcus stood abruptly, snagged his phone, and headed back to the living room. Linda followed suit, coffee cup in hand, leaving Jenna to clear the dishes by herself. She paused at the sink, letting the water run over the plates, the chatter from the other room an endless reminder of just how unappreciated she truly was. She closed her eyes, inhaling the steam from the hot water, and muttered under her breath, "Patience. Just a little longer." Whether it was a prayer or a promise, she couldn't be certain, perhaps both. Late that afternoon, Jenna retreated to the small nook in the bedroom that served as her makeshift office. She scrolled through social media to find a few moments of reprieve from the tension in the house. Almost immediately, she stumbled upon a new post from Marcus. Her heart sank as she read the caption. "She waddles like a duck now. #pregnant problems." Attached was a candid photo he must have snapped that morning. Jenna in the hallway, belly protruding, her walk indeed showing the classic pregnancy waddle. The lighting was unflattering, and her expression looked strained. It was humiliating. Her cheeks burned with mortification. Even worse, the post had garnered over 40 laughing reactions. People had left insensitive comments, such as, "OMG, that's hilarious," or "Dude, you better hope she doesn't see this." One friend even wrote, "At least you'll have free entertainment for another month, right?" Tears of hurt and rage filled her eyes. How could he stoop so low? She felt torn between confronting him in a fit of anger and quietly shaming herself for caring so much about what he posted. But of course she cared. This was about respect, about love, about basic decency. Something that seemed to be slipping through Marcus's fingers every day. She placed a trembling hand on her belly, feeling the baby shift in response. "Mommy's okay," she murmured, voice shaking. But she wasn't okay. She could practically feel the heartbreak thrumming in her veins. The pressure in her chest felt like a heavy weight. A swirl of emotions clouded her thoughts. Betrayal, sadness, humiliation. And underlying it all was a deep frustration that she'd given so much of herself to a man who now treated her pregnancy like a cruel joke. She skimmed more of the comments, each one hitting like a small punch to the gut. Then, with a sigh, she closed the app. No point in torturing herself further. She stared at the plain white wall of the room, the blankness almost comforting. A plan was forming in the back of her mind. Though she couldn't yet articulate it fully, she knew she'd have to make a move soon. The baby deserved better. She deserved better. Footsteps in the hallway made her heartbeat spike. She minimized the screen, as though she were the one who'd done something wrong. The door pushed open a crack, and Marcus stuck his head in. He looked at her, really looked at her, for a moment. But before Jenna could say anything, he muttered, "We need groceries," then shut the door again. No apology. No explanation. Just another command. Jenna clenched her jaw, slowly exhaling through her nose. She muttered softly, "Yes, I'll handle it," even though he was no longer there to hear her. It was always her job to handle it. Little did he know that soon, handling it would mean something entirely different, something that wouldn't include catering to his every whim. That night, Jenna's resolve hardened. She'd been cautious about pressing too many buttons on Marcus's phone or computer, but she decided to muster up the courage to take a peek. A gnawing suspicion had grown in her gut ever since she'd overheard that phone call about how he was not even attracted to her anymore. She knew there might be other women involved, or at least one in particular. She waited until Marcus was in the shower. His phone lay carelessly on the nightstand, the screen unprotected. He often didn't bother with a passcode, or if he did, it was something trivial like 1234. Tonight, it wasn't locked. Jenna's fingers trembled as she slid the screen upward and spotted a flurry of messages on a chat application she knew he and his closest buddies used. Her heart hammered as she scanned the messages. Most were from his friends sharing memes, but then she saw a separate conversation with a girl named Darla. Clicking it open, her eyes caught on the words immediately. Darla, "Can't wait till she pops so we can be together." Jenna's stomach twisted. She scrolled up a bit, seeing a conversation peppered with flirtatious remarks, references to meeting up, and the distinct impression that this Darla had been in Marcus's life for weeks, if not months. There were voice notes too, but Jenna didn't dare press play. She couldn't risk the noise alerting him in the shower. The messages painted a horrifying picture. Marcus complaining about Jenna's mood swings. Marcus joking about her weight gain. Marcus saying he felt trapped in this situation. Darla responding, "Just a little longer, then we can really be together." A single tear slipped down Jenna's cheek, followed by another. Each new revelation felt like a knife slicing deeper into her. She'd sensed the distance between them, but this was more than distance. It was betrayal. How cruel to dismiss her, mock her for her pregnancy, all the while planning a future with someone else. A wave of anger rose in her, but she fought it down. She needed to be smart. She quickly took screenshots and emailed them to herself, using Marcus's own phone. Then she deleted the email from his sent messages. Her hands shook the entire time. She heard the water turn off in the shower and promptly locked the phone, placing it back exactly as she'd found it. Slipping into the hallway, she wiped her tears. She wanted to scream, to confront him right then. But something in her told her to wait. She now had proof that if this ended in a legal dispute or if he tried to sabotage her down the line, she could show the duplicity. With shaky breaths, she calmed herself, a cold clarity descending upon her. This was it. Marcus was not just a lousy partner. He was someone who was actively planning a future without her while leaving her to bear all the hardships of their unborn child. Returning to the bedroom, she heard him exit the bathroom. Steam billowed out as he toweled his hair dry. He gave her a quick glance, no hint of shame or guilt. She forced a neutral expression, her heart pounding in her throat. Inside, she was screaming, How dare you do this to me and our baby? But she simply said, "Showers free," in a calm voice, then brushed past him. She shut the door to the guest bathroom, tears spilling freely now that she was alone. She turned on the faucet, letting the sound of rushing water mask her quiet sobs. Clutching the sink, she whispered fiercely to her reflection, "I am stronger than this. I won't let him break me. Not anymore." The strength in her voice surprised even her. Part of her had always feared she was too weak to leave, too desperate for his love. But now, with every passing betrayal, she found a deeper well of resolve. She made a silent promise to herself. Once she left, she would never look back. The next day, Jenna executed the next phase of her plan. She'd had a separate bank account for a while, just a leftover from before she and Marcus began merging finances. There wasn't much in it, but it existed. She decided now was the time to move some money over, enough to sustain her if she needed to disappear quickly. She sat on the couch, laptop perched on her knees, under the guise of doing freelance work. Linda was out shopping, and Marcus had gone to the gym. The house was quiet, a rare luxury. She navigated to their joint account. Her pulse quickened as she surveyed the balance. They'd been saving up for baby expenses, ironically. She reasoned it was just as much her money as his, especially since she contributed from her paycheck every month. A protective fury hardened her resolve. Using a few clicks, Jenna transferred a decent chunk into her personal account, enough that, should Marcus or Linda notice, she could feasibly explain it away as an upcoming medical expense. She then deleted the transfer notification email before it hit their shared inbox, ensuring no suspicious digital footprint remained. Her mind whirred. What if he questions this? She thought about the hospital bills they were expecting for the labor and the baby's initial care. She'd simply say, "Oh, I paid for the hospital deposit," if pressed. Marcus never paid close attention to bank statements, preferring to believe finances were her department. She banked on his inattention to keep this under the radar. With the funds now safely tucked into her own account, Jenna felt a wave of relief mixed with fear. This step made it all real. She was preparing to leave him. She was literally putting her money where her mouth was. It wasn't something she could rationalize as just in case anymore. The future she was envisioning, her and the baby, without Marcus, seemed more tangible than ever. Tucking the laptop away, she placed a hand on her belly. The baby gave a little flutter, and she managed a sad smile. "We'll be okay," she whispered, more to herself than to the child. "I promise." She imagined a life somewhere else, perhaps a small apartment or a friend's spare room, where she could greet her baby without judgment and cruel remarks. A life free from the chaos that Linda and Marcus seemed to thrive on. The weight of uncertainty was massive, but overshadowed by her longing for safety and peace. Just then, the door rattled. Marcus returned from the gym, sweaty and brash, slinging his bag onto the couch. Jenna calmly closed her laptop, trying not to appear guilty. He grunted some sort of greeting, then trudged toward the shower without a second glance. As the door closed behind him, Jenna let out a slow exhale. Despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, she felt a small sense of victory. One piece of the puzzle was in place. Soon, she wouldn't have to endure any more duck waddle jokes, humiliating social media posts, or the sight of Linda sipping wine with that smug look. She was moving toward freedom, step by step, click by click. That evening, Jenna found a quiet moment to slip away to the public library. She told Marcus she needed some fresh air and wanted to look up a pregnancy-related book. He waved her off with a dismissive grunt. Linda barely acknowledged her departure, too focused on the reality show playing on TV. At the library, nestled among shelves of whispered stories, Jenna logged onto a public computer. She typed a short but urgent email to an old friend, someone she'd known in high school, later reconnected with via social media. This friend, Ashley, lived in a city a few hours away, someone who had once told Jenna, "If you ever need a place to crash, girl, I'm here." Jenna hoped that offer still stood. The subject line read, "Need help. Fast." She explained the bare essentials. "I'm in a bad situation. I might need a place to stay. I'm 8 months pregnant, but I can travel if it means getting out of here." She purposely kept details vague, aware that library computers weren't the safest for privacy. She included her phone number, encouraging Ashley to call or text on a secure line. Her heart pounded as she clicked send. She felt the weight of the moment, how it signified a point of no return. If Ashley replied positively, Jenna would have a lifeline, a place to flee. If Ashley couldn't help, she'd have to figure out another strategy. Maybe a women's shelter or a short-term rental, but that would come with complications. Finances, references, and the judgment of strangers. She preferred a friendly face if possible. Once the email was sent, Jenna quickly cleared the browser history and logged off. She stepped outside into the cool evening air, feeling a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, as if offering her a small glimmer of hope after such a turbulent week. Clutching her coat around her belly, she whispered to her unborn child, "We're one step closer, little one." A mild breeze tousled her hair, and she took a moment to enjoy the fresh air, a rarity in her stifling day-to-day life. For a second, she imagined a different life. Stepping out of a cozy apartment onto a quiet street, stroller in hand, free from the weight of a partner who ridiculed and a mother-in-law who despised her. Returning home, she kept her composure, greeting Marcus and Linda with a polite nod before heading to the bedroom. She crawled into bed, uncertain of what the future held but certain that she was done accepting the present. In the darkness, she prayed silently, "Please let Ashley reply soon." The hush of the night embraced her, and for the first time in a while, she drifted into a dreamless sleep with a cautious sense of possibility flickering in her heart. The following morning, Jenna found herself lying in bed, phone in hand, staring at the ceiling. She had contemplated calling out of work. She wasn't in labor, not physically, but something inside her had reached its limit. She felt emotionally spent, as if the last few days of planning and subterfuge had drained her final reserves of resilience. She dialed her manager, adopting a breathy, strained tone. "I'm so sorry," she began, pressing a hand to her forehead. "I woke up with contractions. They're not consistent, but I'm worried. I need to get checked out." Her manager, sympathetic, urged her to rest and only return when she felt well enough. Jenna thanked him, a pang of guilt gnawing at her. She hated lying, but she saw no other way. She needed the time to figure out her next moves without risking an abrupt meltdown at her desk. She also feared if she went to work, Marcus might do something behind her back or Linda might rummage through her things. In reality, she just lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow circles, trying to map out her next steps. She was done. Done with Linda's scorn, Marcus's mocking words, and the environment that made her feel more like an unwelcome guest than a cherished partner. She was also done ignoring the signs of stress her body was sending her. When Marcus entered the room, he raised an eyebrow at her. "You're not at work?" She patted her belly with feigned exhaustion. "Contractions. Might be Braxton Hicks, but they're intense." He looked momentarily concerned, but only for a fleeting second. Then he shrugged, as though reminded of how he felt about her these days. "All right, well, don't make too big a deal of it. If it's serious, call the doctor." It took all her restraint not to roll her eyes. "Sure," she said simply, turning over to face the wall. Her phone vibrated quietly in her hand. A text had come in. She unlocked it. It was from Ashley. "Call me ASAP. I'm here for you." Jenna's heart soared. She quickly texted back that she would find a quiet moment and call soon. Marcus lingered in the bedroom doorway for a moment, as if he wanted to say something else. Eventually, he let out a small sigh and walked out. Jenna breathed a soft sigh of relief, cradling her phone like a lifeline. She allowed herself a moment of hope, a small glimmer in the darkness. If Ashley was indeed offering her a place to stay, that could be her escape route. Slipping out of bed, she padded to the bathroom and locked the door. She dialed Ashley's number, heart pounding. A gentle, familiar voice answered on the second ring. "Jenna, are you okay?" Jenna's eyes welled with tears at the concern in Ashley's tone. "No," she whispered, voice shaking. "But I will be, if I can just get out of here." Ashley promised to help however she could, mentioning a small guest room she had. It was modest, but it had a bed and a dresser, enough for Jenna to stay as long as she needed. Relief washed over Jenna like a cool breeze on a scorching day. The two agreed to finalize the details soon, maybe in a day or two, once Jenna was sure she could slip away undetected. Hanging up, Jenna felt a surge of gratitude. She touched her belly, tears streaming down her face. "Hold on, baby," she murmured. "We're almost free." The rest of that day, Jenna meticulously orchestrated her escape. She booked a hotel room in a neighboring town under a slightly altered version of her name, an old trick she'd read about in an article on escaping abusive relationships. The idea was to throw off any immediate search or suspicion Marcus might have. She could stay there for a night or two, then move on to Ashley's city. It was risky, but she couldn't just vanish outright without first ensuring Linda and Marcus wouldn't track her. She knew Linda's vindictive nature might push her to do exactly that. She entered her credit card details online, heart hammering in her chest, finalizing a room for later that evening. The sun was just dipping below the horizon, painting the sky a dusky purple. By the time she left, it would be pitch dark, optimal for slipping away unnoticed. Next, she pretended to rummage through old boxes in the garage, searching for the right clothes for the hospital bag, as she told Linda. In reality, she used that time to place her hidden suitcase in the trunk of her car, tucked behind a large bin of winter coats. If asked, she could say she was merely rearranging seasonal clothing. Nightfall came, and with it, a heightened tension. Jenna felt electrified by both fear and purpose. She listened as Linda poured another glass of wine and Marcus retreated into his gaming room for the evening. She mustered an excuse, telling Linda she had to pick up a special prenatal item from the all-night pharmacy. Linda glanced over, unimpressed but uninterested, waving her off. Marcus didn't even appear to say goodbye. With her hand steady on the car key, Jenna slid into the driver's seat, belly pressing against the steering wheel more than she'd like. She swallowed a wave of nerves. "Here we go," she whispered. The engine roared to life, and she pulled away from the driveway, her heartbeat drumming a relentless rhythm of both terror and liberation. As she drove, she marveled at the bright streetlights lining the roads, each one seeming to guide her away from a life of darkness. She had never driven at night while this pregnant, but desperation fueled her. After all, she was not running away out of weakness, but escaping out of strength. The baby kicked lightly, almost as if to say, "Drive on, Mom." Pulling into the hotel parking lot, she took a moment to breathe, heart pounding. She walked into the lobby, head down, quickly checking in. The clerk gave her the key card without fanfare. Once inside the modest room, Jenna locked the door behind her and exhaled a tremulous sigh of relief. She placed her hand protectively on her belly. "We did it," she told her unborn child, tears sliding down her cheeks. "We're out." In that moment, she realized the enormity of her actions. She had left without a single goodbye, armed only with a plan to keep her child safe and a determination not to let them grow up in a household devoid of love. She felt guilty, terrified, and oddly peaceful all at once. Settling onto the bed, she texted Ashley, "I'm safe for tonight. Heading your way tomorrow or the next day. We'll keep you posted." Then, for the first time in months, Jenna allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Late into the night, while the hotel's lights hummed softly, Jenna took out a small notepad and a pen she'd stashed in her purse. She felt compelled to write a letter, a final statement to Marcus. She wasn't naive enough to think her words would suddenly make him change his ways, but she needed closure. She needed to lay out her feelings once and for all. She wrote slowly, each word steeped in heartbreak and honesty. "Marcus, I never thought this day would come, but I've realized that staying means losing myself, and possibly putting our child in harm's way. I've seen the messages. I've heard the calls. I know you're not interested in being by my side anymore. I am not writing this to beg you or blame you, but simply to acknowledge what is now crystal clear. We are no longer a team. I loved you once. Deeply. And maybe a part of me always will, because you are the father of my baby. But I can't stay in a place where I am mocked, belittled, and made to feel like a burden every day. You once promised to be there for me, but you broke that promise. This baby deserves better, and I intend to give them a life free from hostility. I'm not running away to hurt you. I'm leaving to save myself and our child from an environment that's become toxic. Maybe one day you'll understand that." But until then, I need you to respect my decision. Jenna. Tears dotted the paper, smudging the ink. She wiped them away and took a deep breath. Then she flipped to another page and began a note for Linda. It was shorter, more reserved. Linda. I appreciate the times you offered me a place to stay and some semblance of family, even if it turned bitter. Your son and I are not compatible for the future I envision for my baby. I wish things could have been different, but they're not. I hope you'll respect my decision to leave and not try to find me or the baby. I'm asking you this because I believe in your sense of pride. You wouldn't want someone around who is weak anyway, right? Jenna. Finishing the letters, Jenna carefully folded them. She placed them in separate envelopes she'd bought earlier that day, sealing them with trembling hands. The following morning, she would drive back under the cover of forgetting something, slip them onto the kitchen counter while no one was looking, then drive away for good. No goodbye. No guilt. Setting the letters aside on the small hotel nightstand, Jenna stared at the ceiling. Each breath felt loaded with the awareness that tomorrow would change her life forever. She cradled her belly, letting the silence of the room wash over her. In this solitude, a quiet determination filled her. She whispered to the child inside her, I'm doing this for us. For a chance at a life where we're loved and respected. I promise you, we'll find happiness. And with that silent vow, she drifted into a fitful sleep, the crisp envelopes resting like silent witnesses to her resolve. At 2:13 a.m., Jenna's alarm buzzed softly on her phone. She had set it to ensure she'd leave the hotel before dawn. Heart-pounding, she got dressed in a comfortable maternity outfit, slid her feet into well-worn sneakers, and grabbed the suitcase. With the letters tucked in her purse, she did one final sweep of the room. Then she pulled the door closed, the soft click echoing in the still corridor. The night clerk nodded at her with disinterest as she passed through the lobby. Outside, the chill of the pre-dawn air hit her cheeks, and her breath puffed in small clouds. She loaded her suitcase into the trunk and settled into the driver's seat. No goodbye. No guilt, she reminded herself as she pulled onto the empty streets, streetlights guiding her way. She parked a few blocks away from Marcus's townhouse, where the road was dimly lit and shadowy. She walked silently, hugging her coat around her to ward off the cold. The entire neighborhood slept, oblivious to the quiet drama unfolding on its sidewalks. In the distance, she saw the faint glow from a lamp in the living room window. Linda probably left it on. It was a strange comfort, as though the house was waving its final farewell. Clutching the letters in her hand, Jenna crept up the steps. She slid her key into the lock ever so gently, pressing the door open just wide enough to slip inside. She didn't bother turning on any lights. She could navigate this place by memory alone. The floor creaked under her shoes, and her heart thudded in her chest. In the living room, she could make out the silhouettes of the furniture, all the places she'd once tried to create happy memories. On the kitchen counter, she carefully placed the two letters, one marked Marcus, the other Linda. She lingered for a brief second, her eyes adjusting to the darkness. A flood of memories threatened to overwhelm her. The evening she had cooked here, the morning she had cleaned up coffee cups. She shook off the sentimentality. No guilt, she reminded herself. She thought about leaving her key, but decided against it. She might need it for a legal reason later. Sometimes the details mattered in these messy breakups. Instead, she carried it with her, leaving nothing but the letters as her final statement. As she quietly shut the door behind her, she allowed herself one last glance at the window. It's done, she thought, a bittersweet relief washing over her. Turning on her heel, she hurried down the driveway and back to her car, each step a farewell to the life she was leaving behind. She drove away, the hum of the engine the only sound in the silent, slumbering neighborhood. The digital clock on the dashboard read 2:47 a.m. She felt tears slip down her cheeks, a mixture of sorrow and liberation. From this moment forward, there was only forward motion, no turning back. When morning arrived, Marcus woke to an unusual stillness. The house felt eerily quiet, no coffee brewing, no gentle clatter of dishes in the kitchen. He scrubbed a hand over his face, stumbling into the hallway in search of Jenna. But the bedroom was empty, the bed still made on one side. A flicker of annoyance rippled through him. Was she out again, or just ignoring him. He wandered into the living room, only to find Linda sitting on the couch, checking something on her phone. "Where's Jenna?" he asked, voice still groggy from sleep. Linda pursed her lips. "I haven't seen her. She was gone when I came down for coffee." "Strange, isn't it?" She took a pointed sip. Marcus felt a subtle unease in the pit of his stomach. He checked the garage. Her car was gone. "Maybe she had an early doctor's appointment," he offered, trying to shrug off the creeping feeling that something was off. Yet the stillness persisted. No text message from Jenna, no note on the fridge. Usually, she left a sticky note if she stepped out early. Gone to the store or doctor's appointment, be back soon, but there was nothing. A hollow sense of panic began to bloom in Marcus's chest. He searched the bedroom, opening the closet to find her clothes still there. But wait, was it missing some items? He couldn't be certain. Her toiletries, though, seemed fewer than usual. That was weird. A swirl of confusion and frustration built inside him. She wouldn't just leave, would she? Then he remembered how she had been acting the past couple of weeks, that unspoken tension. A flicker of guilt tugged at his thoughts. He eventually returned to the living room, where Linda was still scrolling her phone, oblivious. Then he spotted the letters on the counter. Heart pounding, he grabbed the one marked with his name. Linda moved closer, eyeing it curiously. "What is that?" Marcus tore the envelope open, scanning the contents. As he read, his face paled. Linda's eyes flicked between him and the letter, her impatience growing. She demanded, "Well, what does it say?" His jaw tightened. He handed her the other envelope with her name, his hands trembling. Watching Linda read her own letter, he felt a strange mix of anger and dread. Jenna's words were a slap in the face, a direct confrontation of everything he had been trying to avoid acknowledging. The letter read like a final goodbye, no pleas for reconciliation, no frantic pleas for him to be a better man. Just a cold, measured farewell. "She's gone," he muttered, tossing the paper onto the counter, shoulders slumping. A swirl of panic threatened to overwhelm him. How had he let it get to this point? He wanted to rage against the blame, to tell himself it was all her fault. But a small, insistent voice in his mind whispered, "You did this. You drove her away." Linda finished reading her letter, her face contorting with anger. "That ungrateful little," she trailed off, her wine-tinged bitterness flashing in her eyes. "After all I've done to give her a place here, she sneaks off like a thief in the night." Marcus slumped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For the first time in months, he felt something akin to true remorse, like a heavy blanket of shame draped over him. He'd been so cruel, so dismissive. He recalled their conversation about the baby, how excited he had been at first, and then how he let resentment build. He thought she'd never have the guts to leave. But she had. Now, Jenna was gone. The pregnant woman he mocked, belittled, and dismissed was no longer under his roof. And a hollow emptiness gnawed at him, a belated realization of just how deeply he'd messed up. But there was more to come, he just didn't know it yet. Later that morning, as Marcus was pacing the living room in a frantic swirl of regret and confusion, his phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. His brow furrowed as he pressed play, expecting some spam message. Instead, a robotic voice spoke. "Your appointment for paternity testing is confirmed for Monday at 10 a.m. Marcus's stomach lurched. He ended the call, nearly dropping the phone. He hadn't told Jenna about that appointment. In fact, the only reason he'd set it up was because Linda had insisted he be certain the child was his. He'd foolishly followed her suggestion, letting her insecurities and his own doubts overshadow any trust he might have once had in Jenna. Linda glanced over from the couch. "What is it?" His voice trembled as he answered, a reminder about the paternity test appointment. The tension in the room was thick, heavy with unspoken accusations. Linda's eyes widened, then narrowed. "Wait, you think she found out? That's why she left." Marcus didn't respond, but the question gnawed at him. Had Jenna discovered not only his emotional betrayal but also his plan to question the baby's parentage? The shame crashed over him like a wave. He thought about the nights he spent texting Darla, complaining about how Jenna was too emotional, or how he worried the baby might not even be his. That seed of suspicion, once planted by Linda, had grown into a monstrous weed, choking out any love or loyalty. He slammed his fist on the table. "Damn it!" Linda flinched at his outburst. "Keep it together, Marcus. We can still fix this. She's pregnant and emotional. Maybe she just needs some time." But Marcus could see in her eyes that she was more angry at Jenna for walking out than genuinely concerned about the baby or him. A bitter taste flooded his mouth. He recalled the letter Jenna had left, recalling the line about hearing the calls and seeing the messages. She knew everything: the flirtation with Darla, the paternity doubts, the mocking posts. Breathing raggedly, Marcus paced again, raking his fingers through his hair. He felt the urge to find her, to drop to his knees and beg forgiveness. But he'd already burned so many bridges. And truthfully, a part of him was still bitter. Bitter that Jenna had dared to leave without a word. Linda's voice, biting and low, cut through his thoughts. "If she thinks she can just waltz out of here and keep our grandchild from us, she's got another thing coming. I'll call a lawyer if I have to. We'll prove paternity and get our rights." Marcus grimaced at her words, a swirl of conflicting emotions raging inside him. Was that what he wanted? A custody battle over a child he once mocked? Did he want to keep the cycle of bitterness going, dragging a newborn into the fray? He sank into the sofa, head in his hands. A dull ache pressed against his temples. In that moment, he wished he could rewind time, back to the day they found out about the pregnancy, back to the moment when he'd first promised Jenna he'd be there. That version of him, filled with joy and anticipation, seemed like a stranger now. The voicemail replayed in his mind. "Your appointment for paternity testing is confirmed for Monday at 10 a.m. He knew, deep down, that the test was unnecessary. Jenna wasn't the type to cheat. He had let Linda's toxic suspicion cloud his judgment. And now, Jenna was gone, leaving only a gaping hole where their future family should have been. Marcus couldn't stop obsessing about the paternity test. Guilt gnawed at him, mingling with anger at himself, Linda, and even Jenna for finding out, though he knew that last part was irrational. He felt cornered by the magnitude of his mistakes. He stalked through the house, rummaging through closets and drawers. Maybe she'd left a clue, a hint as to where she went. But there was nothing. Just the faint echo of her presence in small things. A stray hair tie on the bathroom counter, the half-empty box of prenatal vitamins, a battered paperback on newborn care. Linda followed him like a shadow, nattering on about legal options. "I have some friends who can recommend a good family lawyer," she insisted. "We'll file a missing persons report if we have to. She can't just disappear with your baby." Yet, each time Linda mentioned legal recourse, a queasiness churned in Marcus's stomach. He wanted to fix things, not escalate them into a public brawl. He didn't want to see Jenna forced back, resentful and fearful. He wanted her to come willingly, to want him again. But how? He had been the one who humiliated her, neglected her, scheduled that paternity test behind her back. By evening, the house felt suffocating. Marcus paced the driveway, phone in hand, debating whether to call or text Jenna. He typed out a message. "Jenna, please. Let me know you're safe. I'm sorry. Let's talk." He stared at the screen, heart pounding. Would she even read it? He hit send, then waited. Minutes passed without a reply. Hours passed. His phone remained silent. Each second reaffirmed the reality of her departure. Finally, in a moment of desperation, he called her number. It went straight to voicemail. He left a stuttering message. "Jenna, hey, it's me. I just want to know you're okay. Look, I messed up. I'm sorry. Call me back, please." When he hung up, he felt emptier than before. The house behind him loomed, each room a reminder of the life he'd once had. Framed photos of him and Jenna smiling at a barbecue, the nursery's unassembled pieces stacked in a corner, mocking him. The memory of Jenna waddling around, silently bearing all the burdens of their life, closed in on him. Linda eventually emerged from the front door, arms folded. "Any response?" Marcus shook his head, jaw tight. He felt the sting of tears behind his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Not in front of Linda. She pursed her lips. We'll see about that. I'm contacting my lawyer friend first thing in the morning. She turned and went back inside, leaving Marcus alone under the dim porch light. The shadows lengthened around him, the silence more deafening than any roar. He sank onto the porch step, head in his hands, wishing he could outrun the remorse that clung to him like a second skin. The test on Monday suddenly seemed pointless, an empty confirmation of the child's identity. Because, as of now, the only identity that mattered to Marcus was his own. He was the fiancé who betrayed his pregnant partner, and he was now paying the price for it. While Marcus spiraled, Jenna found herself in a small roadside diner 2 towns over, scrolling through her phone. She was tired from the early morning trek but relieved to have distance between herself and that house. She sipped at a cup of herbal tea, caffeine-free, per her pregnancy guidelines, her eyes flicking over social media updates. Then she spotted it, a post from her friend Ashley. A short video snippet featuring Jenna herself, taken earlier that afternoon when she arrived in Ashley's city. In the video, Jenna looked surprisingly radiant for someone who had just escaped a toxic home, her belly on full display, a shy but genuine smile curving her lips. Ashley must have filmed it spontaneously as she greeted Jenna at her door. The caption read, "Welcoming this strong mama-to-be into my home. Sometimes you gotta leave behind the negativity to shine. Hashtag new beginnings, hashtag stronger than yesterday." Jenna's eyes welled with tears. She hadn't realized Ashley had posted it. Part of her worried Marcus or Linda might see it, but Ashley's account was private, restricted to a close circle of friends. Still, it felt empowering, an affirmation that she had a right to be happy. The baby gave a small flutter, almost in agreement. She scrolled through the comments. "So proud of you, Jenna. You're glowing, girl. If you need anything, we got you." The overwhelming flood of support made her tear up. She had feared judgment or pity, but these were words of encouragement, offering her a sense of community she hadn't felt in a long time. She inhaled deeply, feeling a measure of peace settle in her chest. She wasn't alone. She had allies. Setting down her phone, she signaled the waitress for the check. She'd head back to Ashley's apartment soon. The plan was to lay low for a few days, then decide on the next steps, whether that meant staying with Ashley for a bit longer or searching for a small studio apartment once the baby was born. As she placed her money on the table, her mind drifted. She wondered how Marcus had reacted to the letters. Had he even cared? Part of her still loved the man he once was, but the memory of his betrayal loomed like a dark cloud. She steeled herself, refusing to let regret overshadow the freedom she now tasted. Walking back to her car, she patted her belly. The baby nudged back, and she smiled. "We're going to be just fine," she murmured, unlocking the door. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Single parenthood, emotional scars, the possible legal battles if Marcus decided to fight. But for now, she had taken control of her own destiny. And that single fact made every uncertainty less terrifying and every mile driven a step closer to true autonomy. Marcus, now fully alarmed, decided to track Jenna down at her old job the following day. He remembered the address and her general schedule. Perhaps he could corner her on her lunch break, beg her to come back, if not to him, at least to talk about the baby. There was a restless energy in his every movement, fueled by guilt and desperation. He arrived at her workplace, a small corporate office in a neatly trimmed business park. Stepping into the lobby, he scanned the employees milling around. When he approached the receptionist and asked for Jenna, the woman frowned in confusion. "Jenna? She called in sick yesterday," the receptionist explained. "And actually, we got an official notice that she resigned. Effective immediately." Marcus felt his heart drop. Resigned? He clenched his fists at his sides, voice trembling. "Are you sure?" The receptionist nodded, a note of impatience in her tone. "Yes, absolutely. She emailed HR this morning, finalizing her resignation. Something about relocating before her due date." Disoriented, Marcus stumbled away from the desk. Everything was unraveling faster than he could manage. She'd quit her job, which meant she might be leaving the area entirely, if she hadn't already. The reality slammed into him with the force of a freight train. Jenna was serious about never coming back. He hurried outside, the midday sun blazing onto the concrete. He rummaged for his phone, opening up his call log again. Still no response from Jenna. He tried once more, letting it ring until her voicemail picked up. "Jenna, please," he pleaded, voice cracking. "We can work something out. Just let me talk to you. I don't even care about the paternity test anymore. I just want to make sure you and the baby are safe." Ending the call, he slumped against his car, eyes burning with frustration. It was as though every attempt he made bounced against a wall of silence. He remembered the letters, her final words to him. She made it clear she knew about his betrayal. He wondered if there was any hope left to mend this rift. After a long moment, he slid into the driver's seat, feeling more lost than he'd ever felt before. He thought about the future, a baby he might never see, a fiancé who had effectively vanished. His mother's threats to involve lawyers hung over him like a dark storm cloud. But something deep within him rebelled at the thought. He didn't want to drag Jenna through a public battle, especially not after everything he'd done to hurt her. As he drove away from her workplace, the familiar roads blurred into uncertainty. He silently berated himself for every time he'd scrolled through memes instead of helping Jenna, every mean-spirited comment he'd posted, every moment of suspicion he'd harbored because of Linda's paranoia. But regrets were pointless now. Jenna was gone. He just didn't realize how final her exit would be. While Marcus spun in circles, Linda decided to air her grievances on social media. She posted a lengthy tirade on Facebook, painting Jenna as a manipulative woman who took advantage of my son's kindness, got pregnant on purpose, then ran off. Linda's dramatic flair attracted immediate attention, with dozens of people commenting. However, the tide quickly turned against her. One of Jenna's cousins caught wind of the post and copied it into a private group chat, inviting friends and family to respond. Before Linda could blink, people began calling her out publicly. Maybe she left because she was sick of being treated like trash? "I've seen how you talk about her. She deserves better. This is not the flex you think it is, Linda. Grow up. She's pregnant, and she's got every right to leave an abusive environment." Linda's indignation soared to new heights. She lashed out at the commenters, but each angry reply only fueled more backlash. Friends of Jenna posted supportive messages, praising Jenna's bravery. Strangers chimed in, condemning Linda for mocking a vulnerable pregnant woman. Linda started deleting comments and blocking people, but the damage was done. Her post had gone viral within their community, and not in a flattering way. Marcus watched this unfold from his own feed, dismayed. His mother was effectively torching any chance of resolving this issue quietly. His phone buzzed non-stop with notifications about tags, screenshots, people calling him and Jenna out by name. The barrage of negativity was suffocating. He knew Linda was lashing out from a place of pride and anger, but it only drove the wedge deeper. He confronted her in the living room. "Mom, you're making things worse. Why would you put that on Facebook?" Linda lifted her chin, unwavering. "Because she deserves to be called out for breaking this family apart. Everyone should know what she did." Marcus felt a flash of rage. "What she did? You're acting like she wasn't ridiculed, neglected, and cornered until she had no choice but to leave." The words tumbled out, surprising even himself. He hadn't meant to side with Jenna so openly, but a flood of clarity washed over him. Yes, Linda's meddling had contributed to this mess. But he was equally at fault. Linda narrowed her eyes, hands on her hips. "So now you're blaming me?" Marcus groaned, running his hands through his hair. "I'm not saying I'm innocent here. I just want Jenna back, or at least to know she's okay. And your online tantrum isn't helping." Linda's face hardened. "Fine. Do what you want. But don't expect me to stand by while she drags our name through the mud." Marcus stared at her for a long moment, realization dawning that Linda's idea of family loyalty was toxic and divisive. He shook his head, a hollow frustration tightening his chest. "I just want to fix this," he said softly, turning away. Linda's retort followed him as he left the room, echoing with bitterness. "She's the traitor, not me." In that moment, Marcus felt an odd pang of empathy for Jenna. How she must have felt, day in and day out, forced to endure Linda's jabs and his own neglect. It didn't excuse his behavior, but it gave him an understanding that perhaps came too late. Meanwhile, Jenna watched the online fallout from her safe haven at Ashley's place. People began sending her screenshots of Linda's public meltdown. Instead of feeling upset, she felt oddly vindicated. People saw Linda's cruelty for what it was. The negative comments aimed at Linda were a loud affirmation that Jenna wasn't crazy or oversensitive. She had endured genuine mistreatment. Her inbox on social media flooded with supportive messages from acquaintances, co-workers, and even strangers who resonated with her story. Some were from women who had been through similarly toxic relationships, offering solidarity and advice. They wrote things like, "You're so brave to walk away. I wish I had done it sooner in my situation. Please keep me updated on you and the baby. Sending love and prayers. Don't let them intimidate you. You made the right choice." Jenna spent hours sifting through these heartfelt messages, tears slipping down her cheeks. She saw reflections of her own ordeal in their stories, tales of emotional abuse, neglect during pregnancy, in-law conflicts. It was an unexpected network of empathy, reminding her she wasn't alone in this fight. She typed out a mass post, keeping it as concise and respectful as possible, without going into sordid details. "Thank you to everyone who has shown me and my baby support. We are safe, and we are moving forward. This was not an easy decision, but it was the only choice for my well-being and the well-being of my child. I appreciate your understanding and ask for privacy as we navigate this new chapter." She hit post, then exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Instantly, likes and comments poured in, encouraging and uplifting. Some even offered baby items or recommended local resources for single mothers. Jenna felt her heart lighten, grateful for the outpouring of kindness. Ashley leaned over, reading the post on Jenna's phone. "You're getting so much support. People are really rooting for you." Jenna nodded, wiping a stray tear. "I know. It's overwhelming, but in a good way. I was so afraid I'd be judged or blamed." Ashley wrapped an arm around her. "Not a chance. Everyone sees the truth now." That day, Jenna learned the power of community, even digital community. She realized that for every Linda out there, there were dozens of caring individuals willing to stand by her. A quiet resolve settled in her chest. She would not let Marcus or Linda derail her newfound peace. She would focus on a future where she and her baby could thrive, surrounded by genuine support instead of scorn. Time moved swiftly. 3 months later, Jenna found herself lying in a hospital bed, sweat beading on her forehead, contractions rolling through her body like tidal waves. She gripped the bed rails, knuckles white, as the nurse coached her through the final stages of labor. Ashley stood at her side, tears of encouragement in her eyes, whispering, "You're almost there. You got this." Jenna's hair clung to her face, her entire body trembling with the effort. Each contraction felt like an earthquake, both painful and transformative. Memories of the past months flitted through her mind. The nights she'd spent quietly crying over Marcus's betrayal, the supportive friends who rallied around her, the final acts of building a new life without him. Then, with one monumental push, the baby emerged, filling the room with a sharp, newborn cry. Jenna collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her cheeks as the nurse placed the tiny, wriggling bundle against her chest. She felt the baby's warmth, heard the faint whimper turning into soft, gasping breaths. In that moment, the entire world seemed to melt away into the pure, undeniable reality of motherhood. Ashley stroked Jenna's hair, tears in her own eyes. "She's beautiful, Jen," she murmured, voice thick with emotion. Jenna looked down at the little face scrunching up in confusion, brand new to the world. A sense of profound relief and joy washed over her. She had done it, alone, strong, free. Yes, the journey had been harrowing, but she had arrived at this moment, forging a path for her child that was free from the toxic environment she'd fled. She pressed a gentle kiss to the baby's forehead. "I promise," she whispered, tears mixing with laughter, "I'll give you the life you deserve." The medical staff bustled around, handling the afterbirth procedures, but Jenna barely noticed them. She was lost in the miracle of new life cradled in her arms. A tangle of feelings, pride, relief, hope, settled in her heart. The ring that Marcus once gave her was long gone, replaced by the unwavering certainty that she and her daughter would face this world together, unafraid. In that hospital bed, Jenna finally felt something she had craved for months, an unshakable sense of peace. And in the baby's eyes, she saw a future of possibilities, one that didn't rely on anyone else's approval or validation. The day after the birth, Jenna rested in a private hospital room. She held her newborn daughter in her arms, marveling at the tiny fingers and button nose. Ashley dozed in a corner chair, exhausted from the emotional whirlwind of the labor. Soft light filtered through the blinds, illuminating the room in gentle warmth. Suddenly, a commotion stirred outside in the hallway, raised voices, the sound of shuffling feet. Jenna's heart quickened. She tilted her head to see the door partially open, revealing Marcus, flanked by a security guard. Linda hovered nearby, gesticulating wildly. Jenna's stomach clenched. They found her. Marcus spotted her through the door and called out, "Jenna, just let me talk to you. Please." His voice cracked with desperation. Linda, on the other hand, looked furious, yelling something inaudible at the guard. The guard stood firm. "I'm sorry, sir. She has the right to deny visitors. You need to respect that." Jenna's pulse thundered in her ears. She had preemptively spoken with the hospital staff, providing them with a heads-up about her complicated situation and her desire to keep unwanted visitors out. The guard gave her a questioning look through the doorway, silently asking if she wanted to allow Marcus in. Her heart pounded, tears springing to her eyes. She glanced down at her newborn, who stirred softly in her arms. For a split second, she considered it. But then she remembered every ounce of pain Marcus had inflicted, the mocking, the betrayal, the paternity test, his mother's cruelty. She shook her head firmly. The guard nodded, turning to Marcus. "You'll have to leave, sir." Marcus's expression contorted, tears shining in his eyes. He dropped to his knees right there in the hallway, pleading. "Jenna, please. I'm begging you. Let me see my daughter. I messed up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Linda tried to push forward, but the guard extended an arm, blocking her path. She let out a shrill complaint, but the guard ignored her. Jenna's heart seized at the sight of Marcus on his knees, but she swallowed the wave of guilt. This wasn't about punishing him, it was about protecting herself and her child. She closed her eyes, holding her daughter closer. A tear slipped down her cheek as she mouthed a silent, "I'm sorry," though no words left her lips. She was sorry it had come to this, sorry that Marcus had chosen to break their bond beyond repair. But her responsibility now was to the tiny life in her arms. Eventually, security escorted Marcus and Linda away. Their voices faded down the corridor until silence returned to the room. Ashley, awakened by the commotion, walked over to Jenna's bedside, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Jenna looked at her baby, then up at Ashley, voice trembling but resolute. "I'm naming her Hope," she said. Ashley smiled through tears, nodding. "Hope is perfect." Jenna kissed her daughter's forehead. In that single moment, she felt the weight of the past lift. She was free, free from a toxic household, free from a partner who refused to stand by her, and free to shape a future of love and respect for this precious child. Hope. The perfect name for a new beginning. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.